Welcome to Beware Spoilers. I am Adam. Time is now 10:40 at night on Thursday the 25th. And I just saw Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino's latest movie. It's his ninth according to the trailer that I've seen numerous times. Um, Movie's really good. I did really like it. It's like 2 hours and 45 minutes or 2 hours 50 minutes, almost 3 hours long. It doesn't feel 3 hours long. Like, even Endgame had points where in the 3 hour runtime it felt like it's dragging a little bit and they probably could have trimmed. Um, this movie definitely has times where you could trim, but it doesn't feel like it's running as long as it does. There's a lot of things that happen in the movie that really don't need to be there. And again, I'm going to say spoilers as I talk about the ending. The ending is a little bit not what you would expect. But I think that, number one, Quentin Tarantino in this movie, how do I put this in delicately, I guess? He leans into certain preferences that we've known about for a long time and has been abundantly clear, to the point where over the course of the movie it happens so often that it got laughter from the audience. And it's like it's bad. It's really like this is really bad. But yeah, it makes you what's it called? It breaks suspension of disbelief for the movie. Because it's just kind of like like once you see something like that happening, you know who directed it, and you know that not for a good reason. Especially considering what was talked about with Uma Thurman on Kill Bill. Maybe you don't lean as heavily into that this time. But it's not great. There's a lot. It's there. But here's my ultimate problem with the movie, is that the majority of the movie is spent kind of meandering. Like, it kind of just, like, it's a 2 hour and 45 minute long movie, and congratulations to them for making a movie that's 2 hours and 45 minutes long and not making me feel like I'm sitting through a 2 hour and 45 minute long movie. That's a fantastic skill. That said, you can do the same thing in a more concise way and make it feel like I'm not sitting through a 1 hour and 50 minute movie or a 2 hour long movie. That's even better, considering there's a lot of time that's just, amounts to nothing. We follow a lot of Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate throughout the movie, and none of that amounts to anything ultimately. Because what the movie is billed to be about, spoiler, doesn't actually happen. Because the movie starts, the movie is billed as the story of the guy who lives next to Sharon Tate when the Manson murders happen. It takes the Inglourious Basterds route and does a kind of alternate history take, where the people from Manson's cult don't actually kill Sharon Tate. They come to try and kill him and his wife and his stunt double. And it ultimately amounts to nothing because they stop them and they stop the murders and it doesn't happen. I don't see... Here's what I really don't get, though. I don't get... Like, obviously the murders continue to happen just later on in the summer because, everyone's dead and there's no one to question about what they're doing, why they're doing it. So obviously things would still happen in the summer. But I think that ultimately because the movie because of how the movie doesn't come to that, what it makes every scene with Sharon Tate prior to that superfluous. Because it doesn't matter at the end of the day, because she doesn't die. And that's her entire purpose being in the movie, is she is the victim. And if you take away her being the victim, she's just kind of there for really creepy establishing shots of her sitting in a movie theater, or really creepy establishing shots of her sleeping, or her at the Playboy Mansion. And it ultimately, the scene at the Playboy Mansion can be summed up with one line of dialogue that is delivered by, I forgot who the character is supposed to be. So not everything concisely. And the other problem I have with this movie is that too much of the he definitely went to Alejandro Inarritu for how did you make The Revenant with so many establishing shots of nonsense, like neon. When I get back from L.A., it's like cut all that out. Don't need it. We know they're back in L.A. You can do like one or two things and you're good. I don't think that the I don't think that they did a good enough. Like, this movie could have been trimmed. There was a lot you could have trimmed from this movie and still got the message across. And I like to talk about concise storytelling. Don't include something if it's not necessary. Like, there's a scene in the beginning of Cliff feeding his dog. And, opening the food and doing that. And ultimately, the point of that scene is that when he's high later, you can see the difficulty. I don't think the audience needs expositional, like a scene exposition, explaining that he knows how to feed his dog normally. I don't think that's something that we need to have explained to us. I think we can look at him and assume he can feed his dog properly. And they could have melded in the little thing in that scene that shows him training the dog. They could have melded that into the quick scene in the, leaving the vet. There's plenty of space to cut. Like, everything having to do, like, any scene that Bruce Lee is in, completely irrelevant. Cut it from the movie, which is unfortunate, because the scene that he's in is great. There's a flashback scene to him working with him, to Cliff working with him, and they get into the fight, which you see in the trailer, where he's like, if we get into a fight and I kill you, I go to jail. It sounds like that whole scene is great. It's played for laughs and it's done very well. That said, it's kind of a waste of time in the runtime of the movie because it doesn't add anything to the plot. It doesn't. We don't need anything established. We don't like. As an audience member, I was willing to accept, because the movie hadn't given me any reason otherwise to believe that DiCaprio's character, who goes by 3 different names, he's an actor, and he's got the role, and then the character he is. Rick, that's his name, Rick Dalton. We don't have any reason as an audience at any point in the movie, let alone at that moment, to suspect that he's lying to, what's his name? To suspect that he's lying to, Cliff about why he's not going to be the stunt person on that scene. We don't need any exposition as to why he's not, what happened in the past that was going to do that. Like, ultimately expositing that he may have killed his wife amounts to nothing. Expositing why the fight with Bruce Lee that makes him not want to work, that would make it where he won't work with him, ultimately amounts to nothing. And it's a shame, because it's all great, but there's no reason for it to be there. They could have more concisely handled the him going to the ranch. That could have been handled more concisely. There was no need for a lot of that scene, especially a lot of the, weird establishing shots with, someone's feet in the foreground and, kind of looking past it, and it's kind of taking up like a good third of the screen. I'm not entirely sure why that needed to be, besides the gratification of the director. I don't know if he's just playing it up now, if it was kind of a joke, and now he's like, let me play into it a little bit. It doesn't come off good. It comes off really weird, and unsettling to an extent. But yeah, it's like a good amount of the movie could have been stripped away almost entirely, with little impact, because that's what the movie, kind of hopes that you do. And it's kind of hoping that you forgive the lack of plot and lack of direction. Like, I see what they're going with. It's kind of like short stories from Hollywood in the beginning, and then it all kind of sort of ties together at the end, but very loosely, and it doesn't really. But like the beginning doesn't quite, like nothing in the beginning really, the short stories in the beginning aren't really interesting or short stories. It's more just a day in the life. And it's like, it's all things we've seen before. It's like, It's not even a day in the life. It's a day in the life of Rick acting, interspliced with a flashback, with a comical scene with Bruce Lee, interspliced with Sharon Tate going to see a movie. And a lot of and it's just, and that's the majority, that's 70% of the movie right there, is that part. I had higher hopes for the movie, is what I'm saying. That said, it's still good. It's not awful. It's just probably not like my top 5 this year. It's going to be a strong year, and I just don't think this movie's going to make top 5. So if you haven't seen it yet, which is probably not, because it's going up on preview night, I would definitely check it out. Maybe this isn't a movie that, I mean, you can definitely see it. It's not going to be an IMAX movie. It's not going to be a Dolby Cinema movie or a 3D movie. It's going to be a regular movie. It's going to be like $11 to see it. I mean, if you're proximate about seeing it, maybe wait for a discount day. Like I know some theaters do Tuesday discounts. Maybe wait if you're on the fence about it. But if you want to see the movie, I'm not saying it's bad enough to warrant not seeing. I'm just saying I wish they had done more to warrant the bulk of the movie I watched being there. And DiCaprio had a great performance. That's something else I don't want to brush under the rug. DiCaprio had a great performance. And so did, what's it called? So did Brad Pitt. They both did a very good job in this movie. But yeah, we will wrap up there for today. We will have another movie later this week, if not early next week. I don't know what else is coming out. I think Hobbs and Shaw is the next movie, but we'll see. And I will tweet out what we're doing next. So have a great rest of your week.